Welcome back, folks. I'm Jake Ellenbogen. Today we're going to be talking about Matthew Stafford. I know, shocker. That is all that anybody wants to talk about. But we're not going to be talking about, well, I mean, maybe we'll do it in another video about the whole thing with Kelly Stafford and her podcast. And we're not going to be talking about Joe Burrow in this video because, there's potentially he does get traded and all that. But what we will be talking about is something that has been on my mind for a long time. And I finally, took a dive into the numbers, and it's so tiresome about Matthew Stafford and all of the kind of flack he gets for not having the most elite stats. In 2021, it wasn't enough to be a Pro Bowler. Despite the fact he had 41 touchdowns, all anyone cared about is the fact he had 17 interceptions. And so now people use that like he's not throwing as many interceptions, he's taking care of the football, but he doesn't have the touchdowns. And so people bring that up. So we're going to get into why the idea of Matthew Stafford declining could not be further from the truth. Why I actually feel really good about him, not just in age 37 or 38, 39 and 40 if he wants to continue playing. He's shown zero signs of slowing down. And if you want to look at those 3 games down the stretch, yes, he was hurt. That was what was going on. But I got way more to dive into. Before we dive into that, though, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Be sure to follow me on all social media at JKBogan, including Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and Kick. And in addition to that, just want to let you guys know that I'm really tired of just opinions that absolutely reek about Matthew Stafford. And so I figured today's sponsor, how fitting would it be? A deodorant sponsor, full body deodorant sponsor, brand new sponsor, Mando. I've been using them for a while now, okay? So I'm really excited to partner up with Mando here because I've been using them for a long time. 72 hours body control, body odor control. Highly recommend it. Reason being, since I moved out, I don't know why, but I guess just growing as an adult, I'm always trying to keep track of, what's in things. And I don't want, nasty parabens and all that crap in my stuff. And, of course, Mando is paraben-free in all of their products. Clinically proven to block body odor all day and control it up to 72 hours, which again, I just think is crazy. So definitely be sure to check out Mando. You can use my code JKBogan and you're going to get $5 off your starter pack. That's over 40% off with the promo code. So you have to keep in mind what they're doing over there. I mean, they are next to none. I've used all sorts of deodorant in my life, but Mando is the best. It's full body. They have wipes. They have all sorts of stuff. If you don't like the stick, you got the spray. If you need body wash, they have the body wash. So I highly recommend it. You can check out the link in the description below. Again, that's promo code JKBogan. Check out shopmando.com, which is today's sponsor for today's video, to get rid of all the reek that is Matthew Stafford opinions from people that have watched 3 games of Rams football in their entire life. All right, we move on. People say Matthew Stafford's declining. He hasn't had a 40 touchdown season since the Super Bowl season. They don't talk about why. Not that the declining part, that's not real. But they don't talk about why he hasn't had 40 touchdowns since the Super Bowl season. So I'm here to kind of break it to you here, okay? 2022, he had 17 different offensive line combinations. He couldn't even make it through half the year, and I don't think any quarterback could, frankly, for that matter. And I think it all came down to the offensive line combination. You also lose Robert Woods. Van Jefferson was banged up for the majority of the season. Tutu Atwell was unproven, and, they didn't really give him much of a shot when he was, you kind of knew what he would be, right? So you were really down to Cooper Kupp, who pretty much went down the same time as Matthew Stafford, and Allen Robinson, who you spent pretty decent investment in, and things didn't work out. Because of the 2022, what you dealt with the offensive line, I mean, you still had Cooper Kupp, who was a Triple Crown receiver, and he still looked like that in 2022. But the explosives weren't plenty. They weren't a plenty. They weren't plentiful, whatever you want to call it, without the offensive line. Because I think what we look at in 2021 and why it was so dangerous is you look at the explosives in 2021. Mind you, the running back room wasn't nearly as potent and wasn't scoring like it is now, but in 2021, it was full of explosives because you had explosive playmakers. You had Robert Woods. You had Cooper Kupp, who was on, in a career year, right? Not to mention, this is the first time the offense had Matthew Stafford, so teams were getting used to that. But you had Deshaun Jackson for a bit. You had Van Jefferson playing in his best season of his career. Tyler Higbee, fully healthy. And I just feel like all those things kind of came together. But one, if not the best offensive line, one of the best offensive lines in football in 2021. So you had enough protection, long developing plays. 5 to 7 step dropbacks were, not only common, but they were able to be, worked into the offense without having to worry about pressure. Stafford was sacked, I believe, the fewest in the league. Now, this is what I'm talking about, is you go from that situation where you're able to throw for 41 touchdowns, and yes, people are complaining about your 17 interceptions, but you throw for 41 touchdowns and almost 5,000 yards, and people are expecting that now. Well, then 2022, you have like unprecedented amount of injuries, and it just doesn't go your way. So then 2023 rolls along, and Stafford throws 24 touchdowns, 16 of which are thrown from weeks 12 to 17. Kupp gets injured in that season. The Rams rush for 17 touchdowns, which of course takes away from the Stafford total. And people are still talking about, 2023, he just had a drop-off. What drop-off? People were saying after 2022 he was going to retire because of the spinal cord contusion. So not only does he not retire, he comes back, he throws 24 touchdowns, 16 of which come in the last 5 to 6 weeks of the season, and he's playing on an absolute tear. He brings his team back from the depths of 3-6 to 10-7, making the playoffs, being a point away, from the Lions, losing 24-23 in a game they pretty much outplayed the Lions in. He outplays Jared Goff on the road. So what's the deal? Well, then 2024, his touchdown total drops, went down to 20. Okay, so he goes from 24 to 20. He goes a third of the season without Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, which are, the top 2 receivers. He goes almost the entire season without his number 1 tight end. The offensive line starts 10 different players on the offense. And then you have the fact that they only had a fully healthy offensive line 5 games this season, including the playoffs. Kyren Williams rushes for 14 touchdowns on the year, and he visibly plays hurt in the last 3 games of the year. So when people want to say, he's declining, ooh, Stafford, he's hit that wall. Well, you could say what you want, but down the stretch of this year, I don't think it's necessarily fair to say that. We all knew, maybe we didn't all, but I kind of had been saying on this channel, from the 49er game taking that hit to, going into Minnesota, up until that point, Arizona, New York, and the San Francisco game, he had 1 touchdown and 1 interception, okay? And didn't throw for 200 yards in any of those games. And then immediately in the playoffs, when his best is required, he steps up, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, 70.4 completion percentage, 117.7 passer rating against the Minnesota Vikings. And then Philadelphia wasn't perfect on the completion percentage thing, but because he's throwing in a blizzard, but he throws for 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, a 97.2 passer rating. The 59.1 completion percentage doesn't look as great, but over 300 yards. And when his best was required, he was ready to go and win that game. And unfortunately, a missed block led to him taking a untimely sack. And then the next play, it's just hard to make a play in that. They blitz. Stafford doesn't have a lot of time. He tries to get to Nacua. It's in the cold and just the freezing cold and blizzard. And so it falls short. Rams lose. But Stafford has been excellent in the postseason. But again, people just want to bring up stats. They want to bring up stats. That's the way it is. Like I said, remember I said long developing plays? Well, you could do that in 2021 because you had arguably the best offensive line in the league. You also got Odell Beckham Jr., which I forgot to add, which added some, explosiveness to your offense. 2022, you don't have the offensive line. you get rid of a lot of those guys, or you don't bring them back, or they don't come back for whatever reason. And now you don't have the explosion, and you don't have the running, you don't have the running game, just like you didn't really have that in 2021. You definitely don't have it in 2022 until the end of the year when Cam Akers catches fire after Stafford goes down. Then 2023 rolls along, and okay, the offensive line, while it takes a little bit to get the kinks working in the first 3 weeks of the season, I believe it was the Colts game week 4, I want to say, is when they move on to Kevin Dotson, who they traded for right before the season. They get him going. When they get him in the offensive line, it's just a different ball game. The offense looks better. Kyren Williams is killing it. Then he goes down with an injury. They get into a slump. They go 3-6, and you saw the potential immediately. But then coming off the bye, they win. Stafford comes back, all of that, and they just go on this absolute tear. They go toe-to-toe with the Ravens. Should have probably won the game, but either way, very exciting game. In that season, Puka Nakua's emergence helped. Tutu Atwell's explosion at the beginning of the season helped, although, you know how that works. Kyren Williams was really relied on in the red zone, and then Demarcus Robinson later on in the year was an explosive piece, but for the most part, the low touchdown totals, going from 41 to, I believe it was 9 his 2022 season, barely played. He played half the season. And then 2023, he had 24 touchdowns. People are like, why do you only have 24 touchdowns? Well, look at Kyren Williams. He's had over 30 rushing touchdowns in the last 2 years. So just think about that. Because beforehand, Stafford didn't have to worry about that in 2021. So that's why he finished with 41 touchdowns. Again, more explosive plays too. There's not as many explosive plays, and there's a better running game. So then 2024 happens, and again, it's like I said, Kyron's eating most of the workload. And the offensive line's decimated with injuries. So they can't run these long developing plays. I kept saying throughout the year, a deep threat wouldn't even help because Stafford doesn't have time to go deep down the field. So in conclusion with all that, he's not really declining. He just isn't throwing 41 touchdowns because 2 of the last 3 years, he's had a banged up offensive line to all hell. 2 of those 3 years, he's had incredible touchdown production from a running back in Kyren Williams, and that's why his numbers are declining. So if the Rams bring back Stafford, add some weapons for him, and the offensive line does stay healthy, I mean, I'm not saying he'll throw for 41 touchdowns, but I do think he'd go back to being, he'd probably throw over 30 touchdowns. So I think that's definitely fair to say. And guess what? When he threw 41 touchdowns again, people were complaining about his 17 interceptions, which you never hear anymore, right? Because there's always going to be room to complain no matter what it is. The last 3 years since he threw 17, 8, 11, and 8 this year. He's cut down on the picks, and no one wants to talk about it. They just want to always talk about the negative. But also, I don't even care about all that. Because when you have a Matthew Stafford, you have a potential playoff team, unless things just go completely off the rails. If your team is average, Stafford can drag you kicking and screaming to the playoffs. And to me, the playoff performances themselves make this whole thing null and void. Because he's great enough as it is to get you there, but he's also great enough if you have a good enough team, he can win the whole damn thing, which he's proven. He can lift your team. And Stafford's time as a Ram in the postseason, he's outplayed 7 different quarterbacks. He's 5-2 in those games. He has 15 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 2,088 yards, 68 completion percentage, and 109.2 passer rating. That right there is why you pay him. You're not paying him for regular season stats that don't mean anything. You're paying him to win football games. When I know I need a big-time play, I can rely on Matthew Stafford. And postseason Stafford is just different. See, when I say he's the top 5 quarterback today, people laugh. They'll be like, what do you mean Justin Herbert? Justin Herbert is nowhere near close to where Stafford is. Because I don't care about, again, all the stats. And I don't care about how young he is. Justin Herbert can't win the big game. He's proven it now twice. Could he at some point? Yes. But he has not proven to be that guy yet. Joe Burrow, maybe you have an argument. He didn't get it done against Stafford, and he doesn't have a Super Bowl, but he does have playoff wins. He has played at a high level no matter where he is. So yes, you could have that argument. You could have the argument with Josh Allen. You could say what you will. Josh Allen hasn't won and gotten the Super Bowl. I don't care. Josh Allen still won playoff games, and Josh Allen's been incredibly successful in the postseason, as has the top guy, Patrick Mahomes. So when you look at the top quarterback stats, playoff-wise, from 2021 to now, Patrick Mahomes has 12 games. He has 26 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 70.9 completion percentage, 109.6 passer rating. Josh Allen in 9 games has 20 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, a 68.4 completion percentage, 109.8 passer rating in 9 games. Matthew Stafford in 7 games has 15 touchdowns, only 3 picks, 68 completion percentage, and 109.2 passer rating. Stafford is top 10 in passing touchdowns over the last 2 seasons combined anyway, so the passing touchdown thing can go out the window. But, if we're going to continue to do that, well, here's this for you. How about this? Patrick Mahomes, right? So he went from having 37 touchdowns and 13 interceptions in 2021 to 41 touchdowns and 12 interceptions in 2022. Great, right? Well, now he hasn't had 30 touchdowns the last 2 years. As a matter of fact, he had 27 touchdowns and 14 interceptions in 2023. And in 2024, he had 26 touchdowns and 11 interceptions. Meanwhile, Matthew Stafford had 20 touchdowns and 8 interceptions this past year and 24 touchdowns and 11 interceptions in 2023. So are we all sitting here saying, Patrick Mahomes is washed? Are we saying that he's declining? No, I don't know why we're saying this about Stafford, just because of his age. I don't care about his age. 37 years old, he hasn't even hit yet, and Aaron Rodgers won a MVP at 37 and 38. So to act like Stafford's done, to act like he is going to fall off a cliff and just be Matt Ryan or be Phillip Rivers is just not fair, because it's not based on anything. You can't say precedent. I could give you other quarterbacks. I could give you Tom Brady. I could give you Drew Brees. The idea that just because guys out there that have a similar structure and how they play the game of football, they will lead to Matthew Stafford falling off is insane. It hasn't happened yet, and I don't think it's remotely close. The way he played in that Philadelphia Eagles game really opened my eyes. At any point, if you had any thought about him falling off, where he's not worth paying, well, I got news for you. He really stomped all over that in this playoff run. I'm telling you right now, I was really impressed with the way he did things. And again, we're talking about 109.2 passer rating in the playoffs. What if I told you this? It's not just the Rams. I said this back before he became a Ram. But I also said this during the fact after the Rams traded him. And you remember that stupid narrative the mainstream media was pushing when we know they only watch 3 Rams games a year? All of them are televised on primetime. They were pushing this idea that Matthew Stafford was to blame for the postseason. And I kept telling you, I was like, that doesn't even make sense. Like, Matthew Stafford is the reason they had a shot. He didn't have much around him. His first game, he had 4 touchdowns for the Lions in 2011. He's always been reliable. Okay, this guy has really he steps up. You're not just getting a guy that can make plays. You're getting a guy that can make any play. He can make any throw on the field. But in addition to that, he can do it when a guy is about to just come right up into his face and just absolutely bash him over the head. You could do it when, he's getting blitzed, when he's pressured, when he has to throw off platform, when he has to throw off his back foot. Stafford can do it. This is what Stafford does. The reason why he's worth the money, the reason why the Rams need to just pay him and figure it all out later is because there are not many other guys that can do what he does. So unless you're getting Joe Burrow or unless you're getting Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes or somebody of that caliber, it doesn't make any sense to move on from him. It really doesn't. Now, I understand, some people will say, yeah, he's declining, age-wise. Again, the play doesn't show that, but if you're worried about the age, whatever, fine. But let me just make this clear, okay? Matthew Stafford is still one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. He's going to be the guy in the playoffs that you want playing for you. He has shown no signs of slowing down, at least as a playoff quarterback, if you even want to say that. This team is just about to go into a season where they have Kobe Turner on a $1.4 million cap hit, Byron Young on a $1.5 million, Jared Verse under $4 million, Braden Fisk under $3 million. This is the time. You can't waste a year of that. You can't waste a year of cost effectiveness and flexibility when these guys are all going to get paid. I don't care what you think about Byron Young. That guy is going to get paid. He is. He doesn't have to be Myles Garrett. In this defense, he's absolutely going to get paid someday. And so is Kobe Turner, and so is Braden Fisk. And that is when these decisions have to be made, because I don't think the Rams can afford to pay everybody. This is why you make the most of it. The NFL is like a conundrum. It's like a puzzle game, okay? If you're a general manager, you are playing a puzzle game. You have to think outside the box. But the thing about this puzzle game is there are multiple ways to win the level. And that's the thing. And so when we sit here and say, oh yeah, let's just do this and do that, you have to take into account when there is a salary cap, there is strategy involved. By just adding this guy or adding that guy, you always have to be aware of how you are doing things with the numbers. If you move on from Matthew Stafford, you might think, okay, yeah, you go out and get Sam Darnold, that's totally fine. And honestly, I think Sam Darnold would thrive with Sean McVay. I do. And I think Puka Nacua would still have a great season and all of that. But what I don't think is that Sam Darnold maximizes those guys the way Stafford does. And I don't think, Sam Darnold gives you the same shot of winning a Super Bowl Matthew Stafford does. See, say what you will or not, say what you will, but whether you like it or not, this offense has been underachieving. And you could blame Matthew Stafford, but I think Matthew Stafford's a big reason why they've been able to get to the playoffs 2 of the last 3 years, despite the fact that they have started in the negative. We keep talking about every year, 3-6. Teams don't make the playoffs at 3-6, and they made the playoffs. 1-4. Teams don't make the playoffs at 1-4. There you go. Like, they found a way, but if you had any other quarterback, are you in that position? Maybe a couple, but that's the thing. So Stafford doesn't always have the most pretty stats. But he also doesn't give a rip about stats. He's just trying to win. He's a great teammate. He's not a rah-rah guy. He leads by example. And you have to understand what's happening. You're already moving on from Cooper Kupp. But if you were going to come out here and get rid of Matthew Stafford, you might be putting yourself up in a bad spot. See, say what you will, but as soon as you let go of, one of those pieces, and it's not just Cooper Kupp, as soon as you let go of both of them, I agree with moving on from Cooper Kupp because of the money. I'd keep him if, they could get him back for cheap. But, it's not anything like that. It's more so the money. The thing is, if you want a penny pinch on Matthew Stafford, by all means, go for it. But Matthew Stafford is going to be worth $50, $60 million because look who's getting paid $50, $60 million. He's better than Dak Prescott. I don't care that he's older. He's better than Dak Prescott. He's astronomically better than Brock Purdy. Whatever Purdy ends up getting, Stafford will be worth more of it. And to be honest with you, there are going to be teams out there like the Raiders. If he is on the trade block, there'll be a team like the Raiders that'll be like, screw it. We have nothing going for us. We have a top pick. I think I'd just rather pick Matthew Stafford up because I feel better about it. Tom Brady, for instance, might even just say, you know what? I want a Super Bowl. Let's go and get Stafford. I went up against him. I know what he can bring to the table. And that's the thing people don't understand. So when you sit there and you think about it, there's a reason why a lot of people, a lot of teams will want Matthew Stafford. And the Rams could get quite a haul. But do you look at him as, okay, yeah, he could bring in a first or 2 firsts or a first and a second or a young quarterback? Do you look at it as that? Or do you look as, maybe the reason all these teams want him is because he's different. And you've already had him now since 2021, so you should know that. This team was essentially one play away from going to the Super Bowl because they were going to win the NFC title game. I don't think anybody could tell me otherwise. So that's the thing. You're that close. Do you really just take the wrecking ball to this thing? I don't think you do. And so my gut tells me Stafford will be back, but the entire purpose of this video wasn't necessarily to claim that Stafford is worth paying and all of that. It's to just claim he's not declining because it's as simple as that. You can say what you will. I think all things considered, when you look at just everything he went through in 2022 and the fact that really the team kind of fell apart after the Super Bowl and Aaron Donald retired early and all of that, this guy's hung himself in there pretty well. And he's represented the organization with the utmost respect and class. So, I mean, this guy is not declining, and I think that scares people because I don't think people know what to do. If Matthew Stafford isn't declining, and let's say the Rams sign him to somehow a 3-year deal, let's just say that. The Rams have him for 3 more years. I don't think he's going to fall off. And if they get him for 3 more years with what they're building right now, what they did overnight, what they did with a lot of people having their eyes closed, the Rams could be a real problem. There's unfinished business. So before you make a drastic move, just remember how close you truly are. And you've already been there before, and you did it with one person. That's the thing. You can say what you will about Aaron Donald, and he had as much to do with that finale, that ending against the Bengals as anybody. But I'll tell you this right now. The Rams do not have a Super Bowl in the Sean McVay era without Matthew Stafford. They've already proven that. They're a great team. They should have more than one Super Bowl. But Matthew Stafford was needed. We have seen Super Bowls, the way things go down, the snowball effect, when that starts to take shape, you cannot come back from it. And the Rams were losing. The defense was playing out of their mind, but even still, the Bengals were taking the game over. And it was some fluke stuff, but Stafford found a way to get it done. Obviously, Cooper Kupp had a lot to do with it as well. But Stafford, when he had to rely on guys, he was dropping it off to Bryson Hopkins. He was throwing back shoulder fades to Darrell Henderson. I mean, Ben Skoranek was out there having to catch actual passes in a Super Bowl. This is before he even emerged as an option. So just remember that. He's not just a guy. He's a Hall of Fame quarterback, and he's probably one of the more disrespected and underrated players to ever walk into the NFL. Maybe he just never has gotten the Detroit stink off him. I don't know. But I will say there is a deodorant for that. That is Mando. Sponsored this video again. Promo code JKBogan. Be sure to check them out. But that's going to do it, folks. I had a lot to get off my chest. Maybe it didn't, come off the way I wanted to, but I'm kind of fired up, man. Just bring number 9 back. I want number 9 to retire a Ram. If you go out and get Joe Burrow, I can live with that. If you go out and you get somebody like that, I can live with that. But if you're going to just trade Stafford for picks, I got to be honest with you, I feel very underwhelmed by that. They are close. They are knocking on the door. I don't necessarily think that this is the right move. I think he's got plenty left in the tank, and there's unfinished business. Doesn't just end just because one player they have to move on from who's been a key cog in their offense but has been declining. That's the thing. Cooper Kupp has been declining. Matthew Stafford has not been declining. So that's going to do it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did, be sure to smash that like button. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Share with a friend. And I'll be back soon. Later, folks. All right, guys. So once again, just want to let you guys know that you can check out my new side project, The Lounge. I interview athletes, musicians, actors, actresses, all the 9. So definitely check it out over on the Lounge with Jake Ellenbogen channel. Be sure to subscribe and enjoy. In case you guys haven't noticed, I do have a Discord channel for my community on this channel. And if you want to be a part of it, it is free. The link is in the description below. You can sign up. This is basically a 24/7 Rams channel, and we are almost at 1,100 members. So if you want to be a part of it, just hit the link in the description below.